which should give us some spectacular views of the Costa del Azar, with a start in Benicassim and 5 climbs spread over just under 176 kilometres. The action likely to come on the last of them, up to Ermita Santa Lucia just outside Alcossebre, which rises 330 metres in 3.4 kilometres, although its steepness is seriously understated in the official race manual.
Esteban, first of all, tell me that you have studied not studied the road book, because it says the final climb is 4.2%, and I think it's a lot steeper than that.
Yeah, but the book is totally different when you do in real life, you know. It's better if you can do some recon, but it's not that for me this opportunity. So we try to find some videos and different stuff, Strava or Bellevue or wherever, and we have one idea. And we'll be super aggressive today, and the more important is arrive at the bottom of the climb in the first positions.
Do you expect Team Sky, for example, to set a high pace throughout the stage, or just into the bottom of the final climb?
Well, I don't know now. I hope in the second stage they will be more, like conservative, but they take the race and do it super hard. So it's one incognita that for today, and we will see. We will see what happens with Team Sky, also with Nibali, Aru, for example, Bardet. So it will be interesting, and also the start will be super aggressive.
Esteban, you haven't done too many races with both Adam and Simon Yates. I know that you can tell them apart physically, but tell us how their characters differ.
Well, I think Simon is a little bit more quiet and calm, and Adam is more explosive and aggressive, at the race and also at the table, and this is the big difference between them.
So Adam's a bit more like a Colombian.
I don't know, depends what Colombian.
Today's final climb, it's short and it's steep. If you could design a final climb, would this be about perfect for you?
Kinda, but it all depends on the heat. It's pretty well known I don't like the heat from England. So we'll just see. I was feeling good the other day, but the heat got to me a little bit. And hopefully I can cool down a little bit today, get some more water balls over the head, a few more ice socks in the back, and then hopefully it all goes good.
Romain, you don't do too many climbs like the final climb today in the Tour de France. How much are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's special. It's the first time, so it will be a good test.
And you looked very good a couple of days ago in the first mountain stage. The conclusion we drew from that is that you're here to win the Vuelta.
No, I just take the Vuelta easily, day by day, just try to do my best when I have the legs for that, and I just want to enjoy this Vuelta.
You're still treating it like an adventure?
Yeah, exactly. It's my first time here, so I was really tired after the tour, and we'll see day by day and with no plans.
Now, the one man we haven't mentioned so far is Vincenzo Nibali, and that's not him either. It's his younger brother Antonio, who's here riding his first ever Grand Tour. But we shouldn't discount Vincenzo today, placed as he is just a win bonus from the red jersey. 192 riders rolled out of Benicassim this morning. John Degenkolb, who we knew had been sick for a few days, was a non-starter. Now, when the day's break formed, it was a large one. Julian Alaphilippe was perhaps the biggest name in it. The King of the Mountains leader, Davide Villela, was in it too, and was first over the first 3 climbs to extend his advantage in that competition, while Sky controlled the break's overall advantage at the front of the main field. As for men in the break who might actually be a threat to steal the red jersey from Chris Froome, Vincent Postobon's Jetse Bol was the closest at 4 minutes 56, then Mahawi Kudus of Dimension Data at 8 minutes 15. We join the race on the 4th of the day's 5 climbs.
Alexei Lutsenko comes past Marco Haller. They've still got 16 seconds over a splintered chase group. Last time we saw it, it was a combination of Mahawi Kudus plus one other, with Alaphilippe and 2 other of those original group of 5 just broken away and dropping off the back. So these two still working really well together. David, the more we think about the possible permutations of Marco Haller's motivation here riding for Katusha Alpecin, which we somewhat questioned since he is a lead-out man who doesn't really stand a chance on this final climb against Lutsenko, you do wonder with Alexander Kristoff, his sprinter, his dedicated sprinter, definitely going to Astana, whether there is a little bit of informal collaboration going on there.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then there's nothing bad about that, really. I mean, if his day's already over, his teammates doesn't stand a chance behind, he may as well start sowing the seeds for his future team and the relationships he'll have there. There's no harm in doing this.
It's two-up time trials really here, isn't it? And Goujard and Kudus are finding it very, very hard to bridge the gap. They had it down to about 15 seconds as they look up now, which they are doing. They can see the red and blue jersey just disappearing around the next corner. And they look back and they'll know that at the moment they're holding off that combination of Goujard and Kudus. It's brutal. There's no let-up in the pace at the moment. A nice little interesting subplot here in terms of Mohawi Kudus, David, is that he started the day right down in GC in 49th place, but at 8:15 down in the general classification. Now, he is a rider, regardless of whether or not on this final climb he's going to be contesting the stage victory. He is a rider who will go well on that climb, and if he attacks it, he could propel himself up the GC standings. At the moment, he's only about 45 seconds down on the red jersey of Chris Froome.
Well, there's no doubt he's going to propel himself up the rankings, but not perhaps with the very best up there, the top 10, 15, because they're coming up so fast from behind, and the speed the peloton will hit this climb, this final phase, will be ridiculous. And contrary to these riders, the riders who then hit the climb won't have had to do any effort whatsoever in the wind. So they're going to be hitting that climb. I mean, I say fresh as though they're not really fresh, but they're relatively so. They'll be much fresher than these guys, who are going to lose a lot of time, albeit this time gap will allow them to make it. And look at it's like a series of freight trains chasing them down here. All different teams from right to left. Sunweb, Cannondale, Orica Scott, Bahrain, Quickstep, UAE, Movistar, AG2R, Team Sky. I mean, it's crazy. That's the size of the road here, which just goes to show. So this is before the wind flips slight falls flat here, and then the wind will turn slightly, and I think it's going to increase massively the speed.
That's a horrifying sight, isn't it?
It's like, uh-oh. Only 2Ks to go till they hit the bottom, and the profile that was in the race book doesn't bear much semblance to what we now know this final climb to be. Ned, it does look pretty horrible. It's passages of 16%, well, if we kind of actually just list it out slightly, with 3.9Ks to go, this hit the initial kind of inclines, but then they've got about 800 meters at 16%, then a false flat, then another K at 16%, moving up to 18%, then another false flat, then 18% to 15% before it drops down for the last 400, 500 meters to finish. So 16 to 18% passages, there's no hiding there. And I think we'll see the group. I mean, this is where Chris Froome has a massive advantage, and his team is so strong. And it'll be interesting to see where they put Moscon amongst that final train, if you like, because he was so explosive and powerful on that Andorran stage, the strongest of the team, arguably, when it came to setting up Chris Froome. And you'd think this climb would be even better from the beginning, that sort of classics type explosive 16%. They might use him right at the foot to really explode it up again. And I'm sure all his teammates will be terrified of that, because it'll be their job to then carry it on afterwards, before finally, when they're all used up, that's when Chris Froome will go.
Alexei Lutsenko has about 1 kilometre to go until he hits the foot of the final climb of the day. It's starting to rise gently already. The categorised climb, though, is placed a little bit higher up this incline. But here they go, out of town. Now, Marco Haller has done him proud here, maintained a half-a-minute advantage over this chase group, has the Austrian lead-out man, but I don't think, once the climbing starts in earnest, that Haller will be able to contribute too much more. What can Goujard and Kudus do? If Kudus accelerates, I think in terms of the riders in that initial breakaway, he's probably the best out-and-out climber there, probably by some distance. Lutsenko's no slouch, but if Kudus can bridge across to Lutsenko, I think those two probably have the stage win to decide amongst them.
Yeah, for Kudus, it's been a brave move and a tactically astute move to break off. I mean, there was a group of four, which you would have thought would have been the safe play, would be to keep that group of four together to the bottom of the climb and economise effort. But I think they've realised the danger for Lutsenko, and the other riders in the group weren't as committed as they were, and they've broken free. But that does mean they've had to make a big effort, but the same effort of these two ahead. And I'll be interested to see how far Hallen goes, whether he just stops immediately at the bottom, in which case, if that happens, we know he has been helping Lutsenko. If he perseveres for a bit longer, then perhaps it wasn't the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the moment the steep inclines begin, Haller just peels off completely.
Out of town now, quiets down a little bit, and they'll start to focus on this climb. There it is, that's the beginning of the climb ahead of them now.
Average 10%, max 20%, but that doesn't really do it justice, because the average is attained by the fact there are those two false flats, mini plateaus, if you like. So it's actually more like an average gradient of around 15%.
Yeah, those little short, sharp descents will be over in a flash before the next ramp rears up ahead of them. So Haller, at the moment, holding onto the wheel of Alexei Lutsenko. Alexei Lutsenko, don't forget, on the Tour de France, hit the foot of the Izoire.
There he goes, gone
on his own.
immediately.
And there we go. Haller does drop anchor and sit up. 3 kilometres of climbing to go then for Alexei Lutsenko, former stage winner on the Tour de Suisse. And yeah, as I say, on that Izoire stage on the Tour de France, he was alone on the mountain, attacking solo until he was finally caught with 6.5 kilometres to go. So he can climb. He can climb, and he's got an advantage over Kudus and Gujard that's gone out now to 37 very, very useful seconds.
That is, and it's going to be it's a big margin to have at this point, because it's not as if he's got a fresh group of a peloton chasing him down at 37 seconds. These guys aren't accelerating. They're going to be fairly static, and it's going to be a long battle to bring those seconds back. And you see it's even going out further, 38 seconds. And 3K's gone. This sort of gradient, when you're this tired, on those front riders, there won't be much difference in speed.
Well, he's a former world champion, albeit at under 23 level, of course. I think it was in 2013 that he won those rainbow bands. 2.7k to go, 41 seconds. He's pushing out at the moment.
Well, Hallen here has already set that up for him, I think, in many ways. So this has worked perfectly tactically, if a little bit unorthodox. It doesn't really matter because Lutsenko has the legs to follow it through.
He does have to use his experience, though, Alexei Lutsenko, and not panic and not go too deep. If he senses that Kudus, when Kudus does go, as he does now, and instantly Gujard, I think, is definitively dropped and won't be coming back, and Kudus knows that. So that's the big move from Mihaly Kudus. And if he starts to eat into Lutsenko's time, then Lutsenko will have to be very, very careful about how he measures his effort, because if he just goes too deep, he will come to a halt, and that would play into Kudus' hand.
Yeah, and climbs like this are all about pacing. It's when it's this steep, if you go too far into the red, there's no chance to recover. You just go slower and slower and slower. It's not as if you can just sit down, put in smaller gear and have a bit of respite. You'll be in your smallest gear and just going slower and slower and slower. So he must, and you can tell at the moment he does look like he's got this completely under control. Kudus, on the other hand, look at the way he rides. He's pure climber out the saddle, looking fast and looking equally good, but it's a completely different style.
And in the team cars behind, they will be watching those time gaps like a hawk and trying to motivate their men on the mountain. It has turned into a duel between these two. You can forget about the red jersey group as we see them now closing in minute by minute and kilometre by kilometre on that final climb. They are not contesting the stage victory for today. It looks like it's going to be between Alexei Lutsenko from Kazakhstan, would you believe, and an Eritrean rider in Mihaly Kudus.
And you can see the final lead out into the foot of the climb to the peloton has begun. By the way, it's all spread out. There are riders already just pulling out, knowing that their job is done, but it's only about 40 riders still in the race there. Didn't get a good show of who was leading it out. I mean, I imagine it's Team Sky, but it'd be good to see what's actually going on there.
2 kilometres to glow. Well, he will be glowing, I think, with heat and perspiration. 37 seconds separating him from Mihaly Kudus, but some of the steepest sections are right in front of Alexei Lutsenko. Just a bit of respite in the gradient at this point, but not for long. There's Marco Haller. Pretty soon he's going to be caught and passed by Mihaly Kudus.
And that goes to show how big the gap is. The fact it's taken that long for Kudus to catch Haller, and Haller was dropped right at the bottom, like over a K and a half ago. So even though Haller's given up, if you like, he's still battling on, but that goes to show the challenge ahead of Kudus. 41, he's only brought 3 seconds back since he dropped Gujard, so it's Lutsenko still appears to be in control.
Does indeed. 1.7k to go, and it's good reconnaissance for us at least, and for you watching at home, and for anyone else who's interested in just what this climb looks like when it's actually ridden, because it bears scant relation to the printed information, and anyone who hadn't done their reconnaissance, didn't know this climb, would be surprised by it, I think, if they'd just gone by the road book. So that's the moment where Haller is passed by Mihaly Kudus, but as you rightly say, David, Lutsenko's advantage is just rock solid at the moment, and he looks really good. And although he's only got 1.6 kilometres to go, it's still going to take a good few minutes of effort to get to the top of this nasty climb, because from here to the finish line it remains steep. Now it's BMC who have taken control with Team Lotto Enel Jumbo, and Team Sky at the moment just brushed away from the front of the peloton.
Well, we know from they're quite a way. Well, Team Sky are a long way back for them. I can't even see. There's Chris Froome. He's in about 30th position, which is unlike him at this point. Although we do know Chris Froome, when it comes to climbs like this, without fail, he sits back at the beginning and lets everyone else put themselves into the red and slowly pegs everybody back.
Alexei Lutsenko within touching distance now of victory. He's still got 40 seconds to defend, 1.2 kilometres to go. 5:55 further back down the road, though. A really interesting development as the red jersey group hits the final climb of the day. Team Sky knocks off the front, and it's the Team Lotto Enel Jumbo who take things up. It was all set up by BMC initially, who placed TJ Van Garderen right towards the front. Now Alberto Contador is showing himself as well at the front, and so too two Cannondale Drapac riders, one of whom will be Michael Woods. Where are Team Sky?
So a couple of riders, and I think Chris Froome was up there. We just missed his red jersey slightly, so he is further up there. But I think I caught a glimpse of him. But he's got very few teammates around him, which is surprising. Which might be one of the reasons they throttled back earlier on. They must have known that they weren't feeling so good. If we just see here, right at the back of that group, I think is the red jersey of Chris Froome. But as usual, as we know from him, he will just sit back at his own shore. Still 1k to go, and still 18%, a lot of it. So it's going to take quite a while, this last k for Lutsenko.
Oh, look at that gear that he's in. That's a very small gear, and he's really riding up these 18% slopes here at no more than walking pace for Alexei Lutsenko. 36 seconds, that should be all right. He's got, what, 900, 800 metres to go. It does relent a little bit in the final 100 metres or so. Big crowds cheering Alexei Lutsenko surely towards his first ever Grand Tour victory. He's been close on the odd occasions. He's taken victory in races like Paris-Nice, but this is a whole different order completely. For Mihaly Kudus too, this is one of his biggest achievements to date, regardless of whether he picks up first or second place.
Yeah, it's a great ride for him, and it cements his reputation, if you like. And here goes a little bit where it flattens off a little bit, so that's the respite that Lutsenko needs now, and he will be tasting victory now. It was within his grasp. Kudus has not been coming back so quickly, and is so close to go, and he now knows that he can do this.
And Kudus will continue to ride as hard as he can. He's making big gains in the general classification as well. He won't be top 10, I don't think, or perhaps he'll be close to that. But really what he is all about now is just shoring up his second place. I think even he will know now that he's left it too late to chase across to Alexei Lutsenko, who looks so laboured on that climb. But that's just an indication not of how he is struggling, but of how that gradient is playing out.
There you go, Chris Froome moving up with his teammate there. So he has got two teammates in front of him, one behind. So as we predicted, he does kind of sit back and then move slowly up and lets everyone else take the heat of that initial real steep section.
Well, that first big ramp is passed, hasn't it? And now they just descend a little bit before it kicks up again. Relents again, and then that final kick up that you saw Mihaly Kudus and Alexei Lutsenko on.
Moscon's still there, so again a remarkable ride by him.
Fabiaru too, David de la Cruz, watch Romain Bardet in the spotty jersey of Étoile Mondiale with its chevron pattern on it on the right-hand side of the road. A little bit out of position there as they just round that corner. Meanwhile, Alexei Lutsenko, well, the huge crowds had cheered him on in the lower slopes, but as he gets towards the finish line, now it looks like, far from being Alexei Lutsenko, it's actually Kudus who is beginning to pay for that effort of trying to chase down the man from Astana. Yeah,
well, it would have been a big chase. He had to gamble slightly, go deep into the red if he wanted to stand any chance of winning, and he's now paying for that. He realises that he's not going to bring him back, and with that realisation comes that demotivation, and he knows it's over now. But Lutsenko won't be aware of that unless his team's radioing forward telling him. He'll just be thinking of that finish line and nothing else.
And he steps out of his saddle now onto his pedals. He can't quite celebrate the victory because I think it's hurting too much, but there's the finish line. And and that's the King of the Mountains banner that we were warned about, that they placed a bit further back down the line. So he's still got a couple of 100 meters to go, has Alexei Lutsenko, former winner of the general classification at the Tour of Hainan and a stage winner at Paris-Nice. He has tried and tried again to pull off a result like this on a Grand Tour, and finally it has all come good here at the Vuelta. Alexei Lutsenko takes stage 5 in style for Team Astana, and in the end he made it look relatively comfortable. He dispensed with Mihaly Kudus and all the other 16 riders in that very powerful breakaway group, and that was a deserved win which promises much for the years to come for Alexei Lutsenko.
Yeah, it was an impressive win, especially the way they did it, attacking so far out. That takes a special day and a special rider. It's Moscon again on the front. So as we thought, Moscon is the one who's going to try and make the difference. Look at that. It's incredible.
Well, it is when you consider the other Team Sky Domestiques, the likes of Mikael Niemi, who you can see there. Wout Poels is no longer there. So the pure climbers, once again, unable to live with this extraordinary rider, this Italian time trial champion, Gianni Moscon. Well, that was Marc Soler just crossing the line. I think Mohawi Kudus must have come in second place, and Soler is probably in third, but we didn't actually see Kudus cross the line there, so we'll wait for confirmation of the 1, 2, 3 across the line. No doubt about Lutsenko's victory as Matej Moric comes across, possibly in fourth place.
Now, what is interesting about this, normally on these very steep climbs, we don't see Chris Froome necessarily take the lead. He lets everyone else, and then he comes back from further back in the group. But this time he's really taking it head on, which means he's feeling good, that he wants to race an aggressive climb on this, and he wants to take more time out of his opponents. And look at Moscon, he's just stretching everybody out. He's thought of as a classics rider, and yet he's dropping some of the best climbers in the world, and even distancing Chris Froome in that acceleration.
Well, that was a pattern we saw on that first mountain stage on the Vuelta, where Chris Froome actually had to get on the radio and just ask his Italian teammate just to ease off a little bit, because he was putting them into too much distress. And look how quickly that 7-minute gap, as you rightly said, David, has shrunk, because now the GC group are in the final kilometre as well.
Look, he's still going, Moscon. It's Niemi. So once again, it's Moscon who is the climbing domestique for Chris Froome. Something that you would have never thought of, and yet he's doing it with not just adequately, but superlatively.
Yeah, look at the calibre of riders he's dropping as well. Rui Costa, Steven Kruijswijk, none of them able to ride up this mountain as quickly as Gianni Moscon or Chris Froome on his wheel. It's going to take him all the way to the line.
It's going to take him a long way, but we know that Chris Froome, he can do a vicious final acceleration, which he was just holding back as long as possible. Well, obviously he's not going to go when Moscon can still go, but it'll be the moment that Moscon cracks is when Chris Froome will launch.
Well, there are 3 riders within 2 seconds of Chris Froome. I wonder if there will be at the end of today. Moscon leading them up this nasty
Here he goes, he's going to go
to the finish, and Chris Froome wants to just in the final opportunity on stage 5, just make another statement and nick a few seconds. Much better day for Contador, David.
Yep, Contador's back up there. Chavez there. I think we might have the Yates, one of the Yates. No, it's Chavez who's there. So it's Chavez, Alberto Contador's in third place, Chris Froome there in second place. Is it TJ Van Garden's hung on? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yep.
And Michael Woods.
Yeah, that's an exceptional ride from the Canadian former track and field middle distance runner who's converted to cycling over the last 4 or 5 years. So Contador, TJ Van Garderen, Michael Woods, Esteban Chavez and Chris Froome. That means that David de la Cruz is the big loser here today. He has not made that little selection. The man who started the day in second place, just 2 seconds down, he will be dropping down. There's no sign of Vincenzo Nibali either, who started the day at 10 seconds down in 5th place.
There goes Chavez is now. So Chris Froome going again. So Alberto Contador, as you said, looking back on form. So perhaps he's coming over. We heard that he had some stomach issues. So perhaps that was what affected him. It wasn't simply a lack of form or old age. It's perhaps he was just slightly sick those first days.
Well, Contador fans will be delighted to see him back. There is the red jersey of Chris Froome locked onto Contador's red jersey. He hasn't been able to get rid of Esteban Chavez, but he has done a bit of damage to TJ Van Garderen, who will slip back 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe more than that seconds. He crosses the line now. One of the 2 Yates brothers comes over there, shaking his head in frustration. There's Fabio Aru over the line. Wilco Kelderman battered and bruised. Ilnur Zakarin from Katusha Alpecin. And only now does the man who started the day in second place cross the line. David de la Cruz will be disappointed with that. He comes across in a group containing Sam Omen and Warren Barguil. There's Vincenzo Nibali across the line. So the damage has been done. It hasn't been done to Esteban Chavez, but he has once again, Chris Froome, stamped his authority all over this race. Not in the style that he might have envisaged at the beginning of the day, but it was pretty dominant. Victory, though, goes to the man who's already phoning home and telling the whole world about it. Alexei Lutsenko, representing Kazakhstan and Astana.
Now, sadly, Mohawi Kudus of Eritrea and Dimension Data was lost in the coverage, but he claimed second ahead of the remains of the breakaway, who filled the first 12 places. Alberto Contador led in the big names in 13th, the biggest of them right behind him. Cannondale's Michael Woods was in excellent company, finishing between Chris Froome and Esteban Chavez. TJ Van Garderen was 8 seconds behind that small group, and 3 ahead of another containing his teammate Nicholas Roach, Adam Yates and Fabio Aru. David de la Cruz and Simon Yates were another 10 seconds back. Vincenzo Nibali conceded 26 seconds to Froome and Chavez. Romain Bardet lost 49.
Esteban We knew that you were climbing well the other day, and you've proved again today that you're on top form.
Wow, today is a really, really hard stage, but we are really happy. I arrived in the top 4 for the GC guys. I don't know if I take a little bit seconds because I tried to attack Froome, but it's impossible. This guy for the moment is really strong. But anyway, the team worked really well with the big guys, put us in the really set position before the bottom of the climb, super hard climb. And yeah, the Vuelta España has just started right now, and I'm happy with the team we have here. We work without words, you know. Just we're looking and we know what is the next step, and this is really special. And I think this is just happening in Orica Scott.
Simon, you told me a couple of months back that you didn't like the short, steep climbs as much as maybe people think, and that was a pretty nasty one, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It reminded me very similar of all the climbs last year. Really fast running and yeah, really steep and always pretty short, but yeah, when it's so short it's actually hard. So no, I think Esteban did a good ride there. I don't know exactly where I finished, but yeah, me and Adam were also there or thereabouts. But yeah, on to tomorrow already.
Adam, we talked this morning about how that final climb might be perfect for you. Do you remain of that opinion that it was?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good climb. To be honest, I don't really enjoy the super steep ones like this one, but there's not many people that do. So we still had Esteban up there, which is great. He's doing real well, and he's in top form, as you can see. But yeah, I mean, as well as steep climbs like this, it's a lot more about positioning and fighting for the front, which I've got a lot of work to do in this area. But yeah, I'm still young, and I'm sure in the future that these steep climbs can suit me, and I can win on these kind of stages.
Alexei Lutsenko was the man who won today, though, having started the stage in what looked like a doomed breakaway. And he was first onto the podium in the best setting we've had since the amphitheatre in Nîmes, the grounds of the Ermita Santa Lucia.
E proprio non volevi aspettare l'ultima salita, dovevi per forza partire prima.
No, perché salita non lungo, però io preferisci attaccare prima di salita, dato con un corridore di Katusha, Haller, però sempre tirato davanti, vento facile, però io sono qua e sono contento.
Davide Villela had a productive day out, scoring maximum points on every climb except the final one, and his lead in the mountains competition is now 19 points. Now here's what Stage 5 has done to the standings. There's no longer a trio of riders sitting 2 seconds behind Chris Froome. There's TJ Van Garderen at 10 and Esteban Chavez, the only major rival not to lose time to him, at 11. David de la Cruz has slipped from 2nd to 5th behind Nicholas Roach, and he's the last man within half a minute of the race lead as Vincenzo Nibali drops back. Fabio Aru is just ahead of Adam Yates, and Simon Yates just ahead of Michael Woods. He moves into the top 10 at the expense of Romain Bardet. Let's hear from the race leader then with Daniel Friebe.
Chris, Romain Bardet's lost significant time today, Vincenzo Nibali as well. Fabio Aru, it must go down as a good day for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you had said at the beginning of the stage this would be the situation after today, I would have definitely taken that. So I think a really good day for us all overall. The guys did a fantastic job today, just riding on the front pretty much all the stage. So yeah, I've got them to thank for an amazing stage today.
Alberto Contador was right at the front in the last few hundred metres. If you're honest, had you counted him out of the race for the Vuelta?
I mean, he's already lost a bit of time on the general classification, but I think today, if anything, he showed that how tenacious he is and that he is still in the race, and will probably just get better as the race goes on.
Alberto Contador, in case you're wondering, is 26th, still 3 minutes 10 seconds behind Froome, and if Contador is one of his major worries, then none of his worries are particularly major at this point.